Okay, yeah. So good morning all and welcome to our Clean Futures Catalyst Masterclass, which is around how to develop a sustainable and profitable business. My name's Brian Stevens from Coventry University, and I manage the Catalyst part of the Clean Futures program, which is hosting the event today. Before we start the masterclass, a couple of bits of housekeeping. We are recording the masterclass today so that we can make it available to people later. If you could please turn your cameras off, it can help reducing any bandwidth issues. All mics apart from the speakers are turned off. So if you need to ask any questions, can you please use the Q&A facility within Zoom, and we'll endeavour to answer all the questions at the end of the presentations. There's sections after each part. There's a space where we can answer questions. Any general questions, can you please use the general chat facility in Zoom? And we will share the presentation material with all of you afterwards. So the agenda for today is, I'm first of all going to give you a quick overview of the Clean Futures programme, and then Louisa Sykes from Coventry University, London, is going to present the first part of the masterclass. There's then some time for questions and answers and a 10-minute break. Then the second part, after the break, and there'll be another 10 minutes to answer any questions on that section. Then Sarah from Coventry City Council, the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme, will give an overview of some of the support and funding that can help West Midland businesses to decarbonise. And finally, there's a chance to answer questions you have on the DNZ programme. So just a little background into the Clean Futures programme and the catalyst that is running the masterclass today. So the Clean Futures programme is one of 5 innovation accelerators in the West Midlands that's funded with £33 million of funding through Innovate UK to accelerate innovation in healthcare, clean tech and digital technologies. The Clean Futures programme specifically focused on supporting the transport sector. So it's focused on supporting SMEs in the West Midlands to adopt and develop clean, sustainable technologies within transport and related supply chains. And this is done through a partnership between Coventry University, ourselves, Connected Places Catapult, and the Black Country Innovative Manufacturing Organisation. There's 2 parts to the programme. There's an accelerator part and a catalyst. The accelerator is focused on supporting 40 SMEs with accelerating their transport-related products or services by providing external, expert, technical and commercial support and connecting them with industry and investors. So for the automotive and manufacturing-related businesses, the support is coming from Coventry University, and for rail-related businesses, the support is coming from the Black Country Innovative Manufacturing Organisation. And SMEs on the programme receive grant funding up to £50,000, as well as the expert technical support from CovUni or BCIMO. We've currently got 20 businesses we're supporting at the moment, and the application process for the second cohort starts at the end of this month. So if you are interested, let us know, or we'll provide links at the end of the presentation where you can get more information. So the catalyst element is really designed to empower the foundation of a business's journey to sustainability by providing essential knowledge, guidance, insight into skills and the technologies required on this journey to sustainability. So we will do this through a program of networking events. We're running masterclasses like this one today. We're running other workshops around some of the key technologies. We're running best practice events, again, around some of the key technologies required in the transportation sector. And I'll just go into, so I won't go into detail, but this is an overview of the events we've got planned. So as I say, we've got a large number of networking events, masterclasses and workshops. So the next masterclasses we've got another one on the 8th of May around the key legislation required to access sustainable supply chains. And then we've got a further one on stakeholder engagement on the 22nd of May. And then we're running a series of best practice and workshops around things like light rail, alternative freight, automotive, circular economy, and we've got networking events that we're running at BCIMO around things like power and energy, road to rail. So if you want further details, again, you can access the links at the end of the presentation. So I'd now like to introduce Louisa Sykes from Coventry University London, who's going to provide the introduction into the financial business case for sustainability.
Thank you very much, Brian.
I'm in control, hopefully.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you so much. And thank you for the very good introduction about Green Futures and how valuable Green Futures program is. And so we are running a masterclass today on financial performance and sustainability. And sustainability is a topic everybody is talking about, and increasingly important to all businesses on a global scale. The takeaways today include not just the understanding of sustainability, but also the applicability of this concept, which is what interests all businesses. How can they implement all these valuable concepts and ideas? And how can they integrate into their business operations? And basically what makes sense for businesses. So we're dividing the webinar in two parts. I know we got 4 parts on the screen, but we covered the part 1 and part 2, which is about the sustainability as a concept, how we can adopt the sustainability approach applied to businesses, and then integrate the concept into the big issues of environmental impacts and climate change action and the need for action. And of course, we need to establish what's the relationship between all of those economic challenges facing companies today and environmental concerns, and what drives change. So the drivers of change and what shapes the markets in this context. So the third and fourth part is about how businesses can apply sustainability. What are the major methodologies suggested from the very simple ways you can adopt sustainability practices to a more comprehensive framework? So how do we evolve towards sustainability? And what is sustainability anyway? So that would be my first questions. And as we go along, so I would ask you to reflect with me about these topics and think about if you know what it is and what does that mean to you? Is that a goal that you have to achieve? Is that a box you have to tick? So your products, your services will have a better impact on the market? Is that for market purposes only? As I understand, sustainability is really not a journey, but is a journey, not a destination. This is my main a definition of sustainability is work in progress, is constant improvement, is not a destination in itself. So in businesses these days, they do need to embrace sustainability, taking small steps perhaps to start with, and then much bigger steps later on. But how do we understand sustainability? And what is the approach that is more inclusive? So to me, the best approach is to integrate the environmental perspective with the social perspective and the economic perspective. So we call it triple bottom line perspectives. When you overlap corporate goals with the environmental concerns, with the social concerns as well. So we call it the sustainability triangle, because integrate these 3 dimensions. And again, as I said earlier on, sustainability and implementing sustainability, it's about the effort of constant improvement and taking steps to improve what you produce and what your processes are, and having a holistic perspective of your production cycle, from the sourcing of raw materials to the disposal phase of those products or services. So it's about evaluating what you could change in operational processes. Is that particular aspects in your processes and your operations that you can perhaps change and maybe become a bit more sustainable. Your products perhaps a bit more sustainable, but it's not just to say your product is sustainable, because a lot of companies are actually claiming that. But what does that actually mean? And sometimes ourselves, customers, become quite confused about all this terminology. And how do we link environmental concerns with performance of companies? So these days we know that all enterprises, all business have to be very efficient in many areas of sectors of the economy. Very competitive environments, you need to be efficient, you need to optimize your operations to meet market requirements and constantly changing market requirements. But at the same time, businesses are asked to analyze and reduce their environmental impacts. And companies and business need to be prepared and need to be able to accommodate these challenges, these market challenges, accommodate the climate change policies, environmental concerns as well. So for most businesses that I've spoken to in the past, there is a perceived conflict between your financial goals and the financial performance of a business and the concerns about how much is going to cost to invest in sustainability or to become more sustainable from the environmental and social point of view. And of course, all of these conflicts can be exacerbated because there is a resistance to change, and which is natural. If you are operating, no matter which environment, a business environment, there is, from some sectors, an attitude of resistance to change, because if something works, the perspective is, if it works, let's not change, let's not perhaps disturb, let's say, the equilibrium. But it's important to absorb these changes also that are taking place in the market and in society as well. And it's important to establish a leadership, and that leadership is important, not just in terms of company and business, but also the wider industry and governments as well. We're going to come back to this aspect of leadership and the importance of leadership in this process. So as we understand, sustainability should be framed also in terms of social justice, ecology arguments, but also we should not ignore the economic goals and priorities. And that's very often one aspect that if some certain environmentalists are actually pushing the agenda of environmental and social aspects, but excluding the economic dimension, which from my point of view is a mistake. So we're presenting sustainability associated with efficiency and fairness, and also showing evidence that all of these practices of sustainability have a financial benefit, is going to persuade more businesses to embrace sustainability and sustainability practices. I'm sure all of you know about classic economic theory and management theory, and the classic theory is businesses understood only as profit-oriented and focusing on financial performance. So our environmental objectives are considered to be constrained to achieve economic goals. And fortunately, in more recent times, economic theory, business analysis, studies have evolved to a certain extent. And now we actually considering economics and ecology as two sides of the same coin. They're not antagonistic. We can reconcile both economic and environmental and social dimensions. So those new theories, management theories, economic theories, actually indicate that sustainable corporations is actually one that really protects the environment, at the same time focus on generating a financial performance and returns on investment. So my question would be also to you, for you to reflect: can companies be in competitive disadvantage if they don't pay attention to sustainability issues? That's something maybe for you to reflect on. So sustainability, from my point of view, is actually about the future and about survival of companies and survival of many aspects, even survival of our planet. So we need to embrace those perspectives, as I said before. And to me, those organizations that actually adopt the sustainability route may be the ones that are better positioned to survive in the future. So we now have got an ever-growing market for environmentally friendly products. Apologies, I think I've gone too far. So all of the environmental friendly market is in fact expanding, and customers are looking for products that have got green credentials. And so this market is gaining market share, is gaining customer approval. And more of us are very keen to scrutinize performance, environmental performance of companies. We're looking to companies that have already embarked on the sustainability journey and that in fact become benchmark companies to others, and actually showing they actually good for the environment. They are also very efficient and have managed to reduce their operating costs on many fronts. But there is problems, of course, and all this process is a massive challenge for companies, and not just for companies, for the entire world. So a large number of companies around the world have been trying to implement green practices. However, there is a very high failure rate, and there's been a study that I had access to recently from Bain & Co., which actually points out that in fact, on a study they've conducted, the failure rate is around 98%. So that is absolutely astonishing. And you can ask why? What's the reason for that? So according to this study, there was a number of main reasons. One, lack of senior leadership support, failing to make a public commitment, also staff skepticism and prioritization, and failure to embed sustainability into the organization's DNA. So we're going to later on in the third and fourth part of our masterclass to touch some of these aspects as well. So one of the aspects that are very critical actually is the way sustainability is being used. Is it a marketing gimmick, or it actually core to the business? So I think we are becoming more discerning now as customers, and some brands, in fact, they use sustainability for that purpose of manipulation or false misleading claims. But as I was saying, we're becoming more discerning in terms of finding out if it's just rhetoric or is actually more substantial claims or not. So that was my first point. And the second point is there is clear advantages for companies to embrace more sustainability practices. And we can perhaps talk a little bit more about later on. So this lack of transparency is a problem. And I've seen that in many sectors of activity. And for example, how do we know if the t-shirt is produced under ethical work conditions in Asia, for example, is using harsh chemicals? So again, there is more transparency in the sense that there is more information, networks, social networks, etc. And it's easier to scrutinize companies these days. But there is still an attempt for companies to mislead consumers with these vague marketing terms of producing according to green practices, etc. But it's all a bit fake sometimes, and we need to maybe dig a little bit deeper. For example, would that be useful for all of us if we could just click a few clicks or a QR code and see what journey of a product from conception to shelf? So that probably be the future, I'm hoping anyway. But using this perspective of a triple bottom line is going to help us to understand all the problems in a more embracing way or perspective, because we have a more holistic view of all these issues. So let's talk about the big issues now, and let's talk about how we need to understand those big issues so we can understand how urgent it is to act now. So how do we connect sustainability with climate change action? So I chose some pictures here just to remind you of the catastrophic impact of climate change, but also perhaps the vague idea that we can find alternatives, and alternatives, for example, in renewable energy. But we are facing very challenging times, and including high cost of living and energy crisis. But can we maybe connect some of these issues? And if we connect and start to understanding the big issues, then we understand that we need to perhaps implement sustainability practices. And the arguments become so important and so persuasive that we just have to embrace the change and the need for change. So obviously, climate change is the discussion that dominates the environment. And the issues are around how do we mitigate climate change? How do we come up with solutions for the problem? And of course, this is ongoing discussion as well. So, but we must address climate change. Here is no negotiation. We must address climate change, but the question is how, and how do we mitigate the impacts, and what is the action that is required. So the first step will be to understand the need for action, and then understand and connect all the big issues. So, for example, what's the connection between climate change and energy security in the UK? How can we make energy supply more resilient in the UK? What is the root of the problem behind current energy crisis? So can we connect all of these big issues, energy crisis, climate change, COP26 that took place in Glasgow, and other conference of parties that took place after? What about energy security? And what's the role of policies? So if we think about the energy crisis, so especially what relates to gas supply. So we know the root of the problem is dependency on gas from Russia. And also is our dependency on fossil fuels. So that is connected to our climate change themes. And the objective of the COP26, which took place in Glasgow, was to find ways, solutions to address climate change and mitigate the impacts. So at the same time, how do we achieve that energy resilience that I'm talking about? It's about creating alternatives to import of fossil fuel, is creating our own energy resources, but clean energy. So economies can only grow sustainably if we manage the growing urgency of environmental degradation and climate change. That's one important point. So the depletion of natural resources, constant droughts or extreme rainfalls, extreme weather events. So the failure to tackle all these aspects of climate change and impacts is going to undermine countries' resilience in the future too. But we've got drivers of change, and think about what do you think are the drivers for change. So we're going to talk a little bit more in a minute. So it's about tackling environmental, economic, and social impacts. That is a massive challenge, and it does require huge transformation. So in meeting all these ambitions, sustainability targets, it's about adopting this bold society approach. And you need a long-term government commitment too. We're talking about here fundamental changes in all sectors of activity, including energy. And energy is very, very important and crucial sector in this process, together with all the manufacturing facilities, transport, infrastructure, agriculture, etc., etc. So one of the main drivers, of course, of corporate sustainability is the market and growing demand and pressure from various stakeholders and obviously customers especially. So studies actually show that public in general and businesses in particular expect that leadership from the government. So another important driver, and one of the most important drivers from my point of view, in sort of switching to a different landscape of energy and green economy. So engagement strategy, both to communicate a national narrative and building support for achieving net zero. This is required, and there is net zero in the UK as a target for 2050, but nobody knows exactly how we're going to get there. So we know that market forces alone are not going to solve all the problems that we're facing. And so governments have to take the lead, and obviously businesses will look for government to take the lead. And so in UK, as I mentioned, we've got very ambitious plans, net zero carbon emissions by 2050, but it's a little bit unclear how we're going to journey there. Nevertheless, we keep saying government policy and interventions and financing measures is very important. Incentives given by government and local authorities is very important to move and evolve towards sustainability. So taxation, for example, could facilitate as well. Taxation on fossil fuels, for example, or the harmful activities, stricter regulations, new environmental standards, certification for energy performance, regulations, stricter regulations on emissions. So of course, the subsidies, loans and grants for green investments are very, very important. And Sarah, I'm sure, is going to talk about some of the funds that are available. Investment in renewable energy or low carbon energy sources, fundamental energy efficiency programs integrated in buildings, also public walkways, cycleways, electric vehicles, and the switch to electric vehicles, very, very important. So all these subsidies, framework of subsidies and tax rebates are important tools to incentivize the switch to green products and services like EV, solar panels, or other renewable energy. So all these systems of subsidy have worked very, very well in some parts of the world. I was thinking specifically of Scandinavia, which all the subsidies and system of subsidies has helped the customers to switch to electric cars, and now we've got a high proportion of electric cars on the roads in countries like Norway and Sweden. So all of this system of subsidies, grant funding is very, very important. Also, those grants and funding going to research institutes, universities, to incentivize research and development, to boost developments in technologies, which is fundamental as well in this process to switch to a clean economy. So there are obviously some aspects that are preventing the process from accelerating, and some of those had to do with, let's say, government and government priorities and short-termism, and that is actually delaying the process of implementation of some of these green investments that are necessary. So again, what's holding private investors? One thing that is quite significant is the uncertainty, and regulatory and policy uncertainty is one of the most important factors and deter the investment in green projects. Also, poor incentives. Many green technologies have large upfront investments and investment costs, and therefore the risk is very high, increases, and there is no mechanisms to support all of those processes from the government perspective, from the government side. So that deters also private investors, but also still fragmented markets, small fragmented. They're actually growing, but still in many ways fragmented. And investors are not always very confident. They can have the returns on investments, high risks, as I say, associated with upfront investments, etc. There is other aspects as well, lack of visibility. Some projects in the past associating private to public partnerships have not been quite successful. Also unclear investment goals as well. So there's a number of things that could hold back the investment from the private sector point of view. So the actions of the government are very crucial, and I keep saying that, but it is true. It's to establish that clear path and give confidence to businesses. They can be supported in their investment in sustainability, and again, from that balanced perspective of environmental, economic, and social outcomes. So progress demands priorities, such as having a clear plan and also allocating responsibilities, accountabilities, incentivize market and mandate change. So change is crucial in this process, promote innovation, for example, through research and development fund, improve the conception delivery of green initiatives in the past not very well defined. And of course, clear leadership, again, it's something that I've been mentioning a lot. so far importance of good leadership in these processes. So governments must create the conditions for private business to raise those long-term funds in areas where financial organizations are not yet willing to make sufficient investments. So in the beginning, initially, a lot of support is required, but perhaps when the markets are well established, then there is no need to such intense support. So mechanisms and policies initially that mitigate risk are very, very important, especially we're talking about the renewable energy sector, for example. There's been some schemes that have been offered, but now been cancelled as well. So there is no clear direction there either. Okay, so we came to the end of the first part. So I'm open to questions. If some of you have questions for me regarding this first part.
We don't seem to have questions at the moment, Louisa.
Okay. Shall I proceed? Maybe are we having a break now? Lindsay, are we having a break?
I will have to defer to Brian on that one, I'm afraid.
There are some questions in the chat.
Are there?
Okay.
I can't see them.
Let's tackle those. Okay.
Oh, yes, there's one just come through on there. Sorry, I didn't see the last one. Right. A gentleman here was at an event yesterday.
Okay.
And was speaking to people who are moving towards greener, sustainable practices. Most of them mentioned they are planting trees to offset their carbon emissions. And he's asking, is this really the best way, or should we be making the manufacturing of the product more sustainable? And also, as a follow-up, what's the difference between the two?
In my view, it's maybe part of the solution is not the solution. I think it creates some other problems in relation to competing with the agriculture sector, and it's creating problems in terms of high prices of agriculture products. And I've heard a lot of complaints from that sector of activity towards those practices of big corporations buying large extensions of land to plant trees that perhaps are not most suitable also for the type of soil or the environment. Of course, a country like the UK, it's a problem because we're not very large. We got problems of space. Of course, in other parts of the world, perhaps, if we're talking about large countries, it's probably not a big problem. I think it becomes a problem in a country like the UK, and I think we are witnessing these problems as well right now with those big corporations moving in and buying large extensions of properties and basically making it impossible for agriculture, for farmers, let's say, to afford to buy properties or expand their production. So I see that as maybe not a complete solution. Of course, just a partial solution if you want, because of course planting trees is always perceived as positive for the environment. But again, it depends what type of trees are they appropriate for the soil, for the environment, etc. So again, I don't want to be repeating too much, but is that perspective of environmental, social, and economic that you need to take into account? Is the communities happy with that as well? They might not be, or the farming communities. And I think there is concerns and issues in the UK for sure.
Okay, we've got another question here. Considering there is no government leadership in the UK, i.e. confusing messages and an imminent change in government, what are the options to drive the change in the short term, to the short and medium term?
I think that's my perspective. I don't think the question is if we're going ahead with the change, is how fast we're moving, what's the pace, and are we accelerating the process? And of course, government policies always dictate the pace. Of course, we don't know if there's a change in government, what's going to happen, but it's not reversing anything. And I'm confident there is no reverse on anything that's been approved already, or any targets or any goals that have been established so far, both for the UK and also as international pledges in the context of international climate change agreements. So that's not going to happen. What is to me, the big uncertainty? It's about the pace of change. And of course, I think is urgent, and some of us think is perhaps urgent. We have to step up the practices and the measures that allow us to transition to a different landscape, and on the energy sector, but also as economy and as globally as well. And of course, when we're talking about global issues, that's even more complex, but we normally tend to focus a bit more on UK and Europe, which as a region are more advanced in terms of application of climate change measures. But yeah, just to answer that, we don't know for sure, but it's just the pace rather than the direction of travel, if you like.
That's lovely, thank you. All right, another one. A few points. Sustainability not kickstart and not growing as expected. Organisations have high prices for the sustainability technology and not thinking about long-term profit. Customer behaviour, acceptance, no luxury items sometime. Novel technologies, thinking of making money at the initial stage. And of course, the government actions. I think that's one of the delegates feeding back some comments on what they've heard so far. But that's in the chat if anybody wants to have a read. Yeah,
I think that there is a comment more than rather than a question, but yeah, there's valid points. Mm-hmm. Again, we can only have a quite appropriate perspective if we integrate, of course, the economics in this process, because we're not going to persuade companies to make changes if there is very negative impacts on their financial performance. It's about looking at all the aspects and coming up with persuasive arguments is going to be actually financial gains as well, because the big mistake of the past was to separate all these dimensions and separate financial from environmental, social perspectives, and that's really what made businesses very resistant to embracing sustainability. So it does make sense that we are actually thinking. It doesn't make sense otherwise if you try to exclude the financial profitability driver, because that's the raison d'être of businesses. That's why they in business to grow. So let's make strong arguments for saying, if you actually are ethical in your business practices, and are also proactive in terms of environmental concerns, you're more likely to succeed in the future. We just need to actually talk to the young generations and understand their way of thinking, and understand, well, they are the future, and that they're trying to tell us that that's the way they want to go, you know, and that more and more of us around the world are actually making those choices as well. Obviously, it's a gradual process, but it's happening. It's just unstoppable. But thank you for those comments. That they were really, really good.
Yeah, we've got
All right.
those.
If there's no more questions, then we'll take a 10-minute break and come back at 12 o'clock, and Louisa will then go through the final parts around what businesses can do to become more sustainable and the cost of doing nothing. So come back at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
You go.
Thank you. Okay, the second part of our masterclass, it focused more specifically on businesses and what businesses can do to incorporate sustainability in their business practices. We already learned we need to understand sustainability as a triple bottom line of economic, social, and environmental. And one of the aspects that businesses need to do is to identify their environmental impacts. But that's just the starting point. It's not just about that. It's about corporations needing to take a proactive approach. So what does that mean? It means contributing to solve some of the problems related to their environmental impacts, identify those, and actually find out ways to address those problems. And it's about the businesses leading this process, leaders in the business, examining very careful what they can do to improve their operations from that point of view. But at the same time, under that perspective, looking for opportunities and opportunities that can be open as a result of developing solutions to improve sustainability. And unfortunately, not many companies are at that stage yet. So I mentioned this already. Involving senior leadership from the start of the process is crucial. Promote accountability, responsibility and accountability and commitment within the company, but also to make those goals public, make public declarations with the targets and commitments from the environmental and social point of view. And also train and educate staff at all levels on that importance of sustainability and allowing them to take responsibility for those sustainability initiatives. So integrating the sustainability into core processes and providing perhaps incentives and designing an accountability system within the business. So what can businesses do, you probably ask? I would always recommend as the first step, just select easy tasks. This could start the process and show evidence to the people perhaps a bit skeptical about these processes, what can be done, and it can be done very much immediately. So for example, if we're talking about an office recycling scheme, you probably think, well, you know, it's too simple, it's not ambitious enough, but is the starting point, and it can have a big impact. It can greatly reduce waste, for example. So next steps could be to analyze our business operations and what are the social and environmental impacts of those businesses operations. And that could lead perhaps to identification and definition of some areas that need improvement, and then actually allocate a particular schedule or fast those changes and progress will be made. So it's important to set quantitative ways to measure those efforts and set up a recording system. For example, electricity usage, if the idea, one of the goals would be energy efficiency and savings, or for example, travel mileage, and target that as one of the goals to reduce the carbon footprint. Also, analyze the business in a much more holistic way. For example, considering the supply chains, where and from what kind of suppliers supplying those materials, where those products come from, etc. And also investment is important in perhaps new equipment, new technology that is designed to reduce waste and improve efficiency. So all of these can be integrated into the normal business cycle of continuous improvement, because that's always the goal of any business, is to continually improve their processes. So that integrated into this perspective and mentality of continuous improvement, of sustainability. So easy steps such as recycle, reuse, reduce waste, reduce single-use products or eliminate single-use products. As I said earlier, identify and then address those environmental impacts, reduce those environmental impacts, improve, for example, energy efficiency, set up energy efficiency schemes in order to achieve energy savings and energy conservation. That could be extended to water, for example, or, for example, management of chemicals safety. So look at a more comprehensive framework when the system is up and running, perhaps design a much more comprehensive framework to promote sustainability at the workplace. For example, identifying and defining what's important for the company stakeholders, identifying those key areas of sustainability that are important for all the stakeholders, create the sustainability mission statement or vision. It could be integrated into, let's say, an environmental policy, environmental goals of the company. Developed a sustainability strategy that is in that strategy, just define what are the targets, what are the goals to be achieved. And again, do a quantitative measurement of those targets and goals, and also assign accountability for sustainability targets, who does what, when, and a time scale. So pursue many sustainability initiatives that are appropriate for the business, and training staff on sustainability topics, deciding what measures, what metrics. Again, the quantitative measurement of efforts are important. So all these aspects are fundamental to achieve a program and a process of sustainability that is going to be efficient at the workplace. So some ideas for improving business sustainability practices. It's about integrating the sustainability as part of the core businesses. So it's same as saying integrated into the business DNA. engaging perhaps in circular business models such as reuse and recycle, etc. We talked a few minutes ago, and set those performance measurements with quantitative metrics as well, so you can be more effective and also able to monitor and control all your efforts. So the energy efficiencies, energy savings, perhaps investment in renewable energy or switching to renewable energy is important. Part of these efforts could include switching to EV or adopting EV transport logistics, apply sustainability in the supply chain and operational services as well. So many companies have efficient supply chains, but do they have efficient sustainability supply chain? And also adopt perhaps the classic CSR, the corporate social responsibility principles, but including in all the environmental concerns we talked about, we have to also integrate, and that's something we perhaps did not discuss to any great extent, the social dimension, the ethical aspect of ethical practices integrated into the business. And of course, when we're talking about sustainability, remember, we also including the social dimension and the ethnical aspects. They're so important these days as well. And part of all this process of change, of course, technologies can play a very important role as well. So what are the sustainability action that you are currently undertaking or your business is prepared to undertake? So that's one of the questions I'm asking you to maybe think about, maybe you know very clearly what they are, or maybe you are preparing to maybe adopt some sustainability practices. So I just leave that question out there. So let's talk about perhaps the cost of doing nothing. So again, another question for you is, what about if we don't do anything? So we all know what's happening around us, what's the impact of climate change, what's happening with our planet is warming very rapidly. And this is mainly the result of greenhouse gas emissions, and that it's generated mainly by the burning of fossil fuels, but also deforestation and other human activities. So if we're talking about global warming, a warmer world is not good news. It's actually associated with greater climatic extremes. We've experienced that year after year, the increase in temperatures and the impact that those increasing temperatures have in many parts of the world, especially devastating for developing countries. So very frequent droughts and also intense rainfalls in other parts of the world. So all of these impacts resulting from the warming of the planet affects people's health, and also affects businesses, affects productivity in many parts of the world, especially in the countries that are growing and need all the resources available, and they mostly the ones that suffer more and the changes in climate. But it has an impact on well-being and slows down development in these parts of the world that need further development. We're talking about Asia, Africa, etc. So it's important that we mitigate these impacts also because we're thinking about the goals of development and eradication of poverty in those developing or underdeveloped countries around the world. So really, over the past decade, an average of about 206 million people were affected annually by storms, floods, droughts, and wildfires. So if you think about the cost of doing nothing is terrifying, it's clear that we need to do something about it. But there is also financial implications resulting from climate change. For example, the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, estimates the investment needed for net zero by 2050 is about 1.4 trillion pounds. But we are just considering one side of the balance sheet, one side of the problem. There are also cost savings due to, for example, efficient vehicles on the road, more efficient buildings, and also some economic boost related to creation of green jobs, green industries. That is the big story of the 21st century. So talking about all those financial implications, we need to balance the pros and cons. And it's quite clear that cutting fossil fuel or the cutting of fossil fuel or the phasing out of fossil fuel will bring a lot of benefits in terms of air quality, and also in terms of by creating solutions, switching to renewable energy is going to benefit. So about 40,000 people in UK are killed because of air quality and pollution. So when we're talking about, for example, fuel efficiency savings, again, the OBR, they came up with a cost estimate that all these costs are going to fall by about 75% or 0.4% of GDP a year if we're taking into account all of these benefits and efficiency savings that we obtain by switching out of fossil fuels and embracing a green economy. So the OBR also saying delaying all these important climate change action by a decade could actually double the cost to government. Another company, actually insurance company, Swiss Re, came up with a very interesting estimate as well. It calculates a 10% loss in global GDP by 2050 if we don't do anything on climate change. And this is in line with other studies that have been conducted. So some other studies suggest that if we go above the 1.5 temperature limit, if we go above that limit, there's going to be very high costs involved because that results in severe and drastic impacts on the environment. So many arguments, and all organizations with credibility are coming up with the same assessment. The climate change action is important and we need to pursue that. So what are the benefits for businesses? Because we need to think about, of course, we keep saying the economics, the financial performance is one of the most important focus. We cannot dismiss that, but there is very clear benefits as well in terms of, for example, lower operating costs if we are conducting energy savings, energy efficiency projects that is going to lower our consumption of energy. It's just an example of that's going to go directly to the bottom line. It's going to mean that lower operating costs are beneficial for financial reasons and financial performance. And at the same time, you're achieving a benefit with reduced environmental impacts, But if at the end of doing all these investments in environmental and social processes, you're going to then have increased profitability, for example, greater sales volume because you increase your market share and your customer base attracted by perhaps enhanced reputation, a change of direction into more sustainable practices that attracts a new set of customers is going to be a great benefit for business growth. But not just that, it is about higher employee morale and also productivity, the feel-good factor, because you engage in something that is going to matter for the planet and for society. In general, that well-being is important. It creates a higher quality of life. But so it seems to be a win-win situation in the end. It's reduced costs for businesses, for all of us, perhaps reduced energy bills if we engage in energy efficiencies processes. For businesses, if it means increased sales, attracting customer base or wider customer base that are more likely to buy the products or services from those companies that adopt those good corporate sustainability programs. And also is the aspect of reputation, the achieving a stronger public image, that companies are perceived as being responsible from the social and also from the environmental point of view. So it's, as I said, it's very much a win situation on many fronts as we embrace the sustainability perspective. So shaping the direction of the markets by implementing policies and regulatory framework. Again, I would like to emphasize the importance of government leadership, and that is reflected into appropriate policies. Since the early 2000s, governments around the world have committed to implement measures to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. A whole range of different policies have been implemented around the world. As I mentioned earlier, Europe is perhaps the region in the world which has been more ambition in terms of implementing measures to reduce the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, with certain level of success, and more investment also being made in UK, for example, extensive investment in offshore wind, and a big proportion of our power in UK now comes from renewable energy. In particular, onshore and offshore wind power. So that's positive steps forward. So all of these needs policies to encourage the development of these sectors. So these policies, for example, could include encourage people to invest in energy efficiency processes, investing in technology, but also in many other sectors. For example, deforestation is something that is a concern everywhere in the world, and together with the government role in promoting clean energy, which is fundamental. So if we think about all this period of time since the early 2000s, the greenhouse gas emissions have continued to increase, and that is a fact. But perhaps less negative is the fact that it's been increasing at a slower rate than in the past. So if we're thinking about the period 2000 to 2010, actually the increase in greenhouse gas emissions is slowed down from 2.3% per year increase before 2000 to 1.3 for the period between 2000 and 2010. And if we consider after that, it's actually decreased further and dropped to 0.8%. So although we have not reversed this particular trend of greenhouse gas emissions, the increase has slowed down considerably, and that is perhaps not so bad, I guess. So shaping the direction of the markets with policies and regulatory frameworks. So policies need to be designed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and to a certain extent in Europe have been very effective, of course, by applying stricter environmental regulations, and obviously prior to that, so making commitments in the context of international climate change agreements, and pledges have been made to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, some other countries around the world are less ambitious, but the trend is continued to gather momentum. So of course, all those policies and government policies are the driving force. And again, I said earlier on, it is not about the transformation of the landscape, it's about how fast we're moving to get there. So many actions, such, for example, enacting carbon pricing, which has been adopted in Europe, it can be quite effective. Taxing emissions of carbon dioxide are very effective as well. Efforts to decrease deforestation are important, and several policies to reduce energy consumption, because all the energy consumption we consume is from fossil fuels. So some final words that I would like to communicate with you. Sustainability and sustainable business practices is about producing, implementing actions that are going to allow a company to establish a good reputation, but also create that positive impact on people, society, and also the environment, but at the same time making a profit. So we cannot dismiss that very crucial part of a business, and the raison d'être the business is to make a profit and to grow as a business. Sustainability is essential part of social and environmental responsibility in business today, and is a necessary step towards preserving our planet for future generations. Again, I will say a sentence that I normally like to say very often is: sustainability is a journey, not a destination. Of course, there is lots of challenges along the way. But I'm hoping that my words today, our discussion today, can make a little impact to illustrate why is it important that we embrace sustainability and business embrace sustainability. And in the end, it can contribute to greater business resilience and success. So, of course, communication, to enhance public awareness, political leadership, technology innovation, that has got to be linked to drive sustainability business agenda for sure. So that's my final words. We have to visualize and construct the future, and laying the foundation for net zero future, and transform the world by changing the agenda towards towards sustainability. And I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for listening, and I'd be very happy to take your questions.
Okay, we certainly have one now. What are the ways to influence the government for the specific policy changes, and who are the people or teams responsible to influence them?
Well, that's a very, very challenging question. There is many ways to approach this problem. Of course, normally we say public opinion is very, very strong. Leadership in industry is very, very important. Where you operate, in the particular sector you operate. In certain sectors, industry leadership is very much at the far front of all these processes in terms of communication, in terms of trying to galvanize the interest and the urgency. I can't say it's all the same all across all business sectors. It's not, but perhaps some are more upfront than others. But I would say, like I said in my my presentation, leadership is very, very important. Pressure groups, very, very important. Action, political action through your MPs, perhaps, establish relationships with the powers, the local authorities, all of those aspects. I know Sarah is going to talk a little bit about what's available, what funds are available, what support is available for businesses. I think it is about proclaiming the urgency or accelerating the process, and no process is the same. We can't impose rigid frameworks to all business, because what might work very well for one business might not work for another, and that this is the reason why I said, you know, start simple steps and sort of build up on that. Of course, you know, having clarity is important, and I said that during my presentation, and unfortunately we don't seem to have that level of clarity, and investors, of course, that become quite worried if there is no clarity about the path forward. I know we've got some goals, but yeah, is the pace that is actually not quite certain how and how fast we're getting there. But yeah, it is a complex. I'm not trying not to answer the question, but it's complex because it's about action at various levels, at the business level, and then the industry level, and then the society level. And what drives all of these, of course, is the direction of travel, which is being indicated by the policies that are implemented. And of course, the fact that we got elections this year, we don't know exactly what are the policies and who'll be in power. Again, as I said, there is no reversing. This is going ahead, going forward. It sometimes is in terms of priorities, what is a priority, because we're facing a very difficult time at the moment. People are struggling, energy crisis, etc. What do we tackle first? So, but it doesn't stop this process. How we create the urgencies, it's difficult at this context, because there's so many different problems now being so urgent, and so that we need to prioritize, like cost of living, people not being able to pay their energy bills, etc. So that creates a priority. And I've noticed some of these environmental and sustainability efforts seem to be pushed aside and that's been the case perhaps the last year or so. We all noticed that there is or push it aside is not so important because there is other priorities. So I have to say that I don't have a definite answer for your question, because it's kind of evolving, really. You can act on many different fronts, and maybe you can go ahead and implement your measures, of course, taking into account what's happening right now in the context of political, economic, and social processes, and what makes sense for you as a business. But it's about moving in that direction. But of course, how fast you go as well is a very much a business focused decision. I'm sorry if I'm not completely, giving you a ready-made answer, but I don't think there is one at the moment, anyway.
I'm going to paraphrase this one because it's quite a long question. With clear benefits to businesses and obviously the planet, why are businesses still not changing? And the concern is that if there's not the leadership from the government, how is it ever going to change, and to change quickly enough to prevent irreversible damage? It's another one of those very complicated questions.
Yeah, well, I think, and I think I tried to touch some of that, in the sense of it's about communication, about awareness. It's about making these arguments strong enough so companies believe it's their interest as a business to evolve in that direction. Because you still, many businesses, many companies are still quite entrenched in their old-fashioned economic theories, like I mentioned earlier, and styles of management that you only focus on profitability, growth, and the financial performance. And I think that's the understanding of many business leaders. They're resisting that change, the change that is required, because that's what you've been just developing your business under those principles. And change is difficult, and to actually be aware of the benefits that a change will bring, in terms of, like I mentioned, incorporating other aspects, the environmental and social aspects, and look at the evidence that there is benefits, even on this social aspect. The social and environment are very well connected. So you get a feel-good factor amongst your workforce, because these people are empowered. They know they matter, and they're doing something important. And many companies, you've seen that happening when transformation takes place, and the workforce realizes that actually they can participate in the growth of the company, but also make an impact in the communities, and make a positive contribution. And that is the well-being. That is the feeling that you got a purpose, and that is more like to generate a financial return. So I think it's understanding, awareness, and perhaps sometimes resisting change, in the sense I've always functioned this way. Why should I change business practice? Why should I embrace other ways of doing businesses? I think there is a lot of resistance, and that's the reason, from my point of view, that more companies are not ready to embrace sustainability from the perspective that we talked about today.
Do we have time for one more? I'll ask them. Specifically, the interest is around social enterprise. What's the role of or potential role of social enterprise and the social enterprise community in this endeavour?
I think it's very, very important because we actually focus more on environmental concerns and impacts, and not so much on the social dimension, but they in fact very much linked, and social enterprises have got an important role to play as well in terms of communities and community benefits and serving communities specific needs. I think that's important sector that is perhaps not well developed as well, because perhaps not enough support, again, not enough awareness about the importance and role of these specific companies. And there is some bureaucracy as well connected with constituting a social enterprise as well. But I think it's I'm not sure if I'm being very much at ease answering that question, but because I'm not my area of expertise, social enterprise, but I do think they have a role to play, and I think we should integrate obviously with environmental concerns as well, and because they're serving a particular needs in the community. I think yeah, more the better as well, and more perhaps support should be given that it's actually the case these days.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions, Lindsay?
Fine.
Sorry, Lindsay, can't hear you.
I've not got any more, no.
Okay, great. We will hand over, if that's everything from you, Louisa, we'll hand over to Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm hoping to meet you on Zoom or any other way sometime soon. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
So yeah, so now I'll hand over to Sarah, who's an energy advisor at Coventry City Council and works on the decarbonisation net zero programme, and she can give you an overview of some of the support available in the West Midlands to help businesses decarbonise. So with a bit of luck, I can hand over control to Sarah.
Yep, I think that's worked.
Yeah,
fingers crossed. Thank you. And yeah, just apologies in advance. I'm having a few technical difficulties today, so if I freeze, yeah, I might have to switch my camera off just to help the bandwidth, because I'm on an old laptop. So, but yeah, thank you, Brian and the team, for inviting me, and yeah, thank you, Louisa, for your presentation as well. That's really brilliant overview, and yeah, hopefully some tangible actions for businesses to take to start their decarbonisation journey, or ones that are further along and are looking at a bit more kind of specialist kind of action going forward. Yeah, so I work on the decarbonisation net zero programme, which runs across the wider West Midlands region. Specifically, I'm based in Coventry, but there's support for businesses around the region. So what is the programme? It aims to support SMEs, so small to medium enterprises, on their decarbonisation journey, to reduce carbon emissions and kind of just look at how they become more sustainable and what they can do. And potentially there is grant funding available for businesses following initial support as well. So yeah, we started the programme October last year. So we're now supporting, I think, well over 500 businesses so far. And yeah, we're UK government funded and work with the West Midlands Combined Authority as well. Next slide. Yeah, so our objectives are to support decarbonisation efforts for businesses across the West Midlands. So a lot of what we do is produce a free energy report that kind of baselines the company's energy usage and looks at different actions that they can do to become more sustainable. The programme aligns with the UK government's net zero target 2050 or sooner, and yeah, kind of ties into a lot of the wider policies on climate change across the region. Yeah, we will be delivering, I think it's about 4,000 energy audits across West Midlands region, so quite a wide reaching scope. And the programme will run until the end of March next year. I mentioned previously, so there are capital grants available for energy efficiency measures. So the minimum grant available is £1,000, and this goes up to £100,000. And it has to be match funded by the business, and that's at a 50% intervention rate. And yeah, we support a wide range of businesses. So to qualify, you have to be an SME, so fewer than 250 employees. But we can support, you know, much smaller businesses, sole traders. You know, we go from like beauty salons, hairdressers, shops, up to larger manufacturing companies that may have over 200 employees. So even though we only support SMEs, that, you know, that covers a big proportion of businesses in the West Midlands region. So the journey for a business, if you are interested, or if you know any businesses that are interested in signing up, the initial stage is to register. So I've got a few links and QR codes within this presentation if you are interested in registering. So we'll just capture some initial details, make sure you're eligible. And then following this, we have a triage process. So we have to ask your business a few questions, such as how much energy you're using each year. At this point, we will triage some larger businesses that use a lot of energy onto a high energy intensity audit. No, high intensity energy audit, got that wrong. Which is a bit more specialist. So if you use a lot of energy, say like a foundry, or where you're using a lot of process heat, you would get a bit more specialist support and potentially more kind of data loggers around site, just to give a more detailed overview of energy usage. But the majority of businesses would go under and receive a standard energy audit. And you, yeah, at this point you'll be assigned a business energy advisor. We can then, we'll produce a free energy assessment for you. So we'll capture some data. So we would ask for 12 months worth of your bills. If you have any kind of half-hourly energy data, anything like that, that really helps us build a better picture of what the business is using. And we'll do a site visit in most cases as well. So come out to site, look at lighting, heating, potentially other things, such as ask about what fleet you have, your waste streams. And then following that, we would produce an energy report and send that out to you. Yeah, within the report, there'll be a number of recommendations. So this would look at how much energy you'll be saving, the cost saving associated with that, the estimated cost of installation, and also the payback period, so you can get a good idea of, you know, what you'll be saving, and yeah, the carbon saving for each measure as well, which is obviously important in kind of assessing your overall carbon impact. And then following that, some businesses will be invited to apply for grant funding. So mentioned previously, there's funding available up to £100,000 to implement some of the measures that are kind of outlined in the energy report. So some of the resources available. So as part of the wider decarbonisation net zero programme, we have a green business network. So currently over 3,000 members are signed up. We offer a number of resources through this. So there's a monthly newsletter, there's a number of kind of webinars on different topics, and we do host networking events as well throughout the year. So yeah, there's a link to sign up there, but yeah, it's a really good resource just to find out what's happening in the region. So there might be other programs, say about, I don't know, biodiversity or like transport, and yeah, we would detail kind of opportunities within the newsletter. We also host a green business podcast, so there's over 10 episodes that you can access retrospectively. So again, there's a QR code, so you could follow the link to that. So yeah, we've done a number of podcasts on different topics, so biodiversity, carbon accounting, and outlining the a bit more detail around like funding opportunities as well. So yeah, I'd encourage you to have a look at the podcasts, and yeah, have a look at those. We have a green business directory, so a lot of feedback we got from businesses from previous grant programs was they you know, they wanted to upgrade their lighting, install solar, etc., but they didn't really know where to go in terms of where to get quotes from, etc. So we have a number of suppliers listed on the website, so there's a link there. Just a caveat, we haven't officially tendered or gone through, you know, detailed checks on these companies, but hopefully it's a first port of call, you know, if you are wanting to install some energy efficiency measures or renewable energy, you know, you can access some businesses via the directory. And yeah, just to outline some additional support. So as well as the net zero grants, there are also capital grants available via the business support programme. So again, these are within the Coventry area, but also wider West Midlands as well. They will have different pots of funding available. So it's non-financial support, so it might be, I don't know, support looking at marketing, financial planning, and then there are capital grants available as well. So these are at a similar rate to the net zero grants, 50% intervention rate, and there's different bands of grant available up to 25,000. These are, so the outcome of this grant, it's around like business growth, productivity. So for example, we've supported businesses before, they're getting additional machinery, and then creating a job as part of that. So those are the kinds of projects that are supported. And yeah, just to highlight some of the wider support programs available to businesses. So we work with the Coventry Warwickshire Growth Hub, CDA, Chamber of Commerce. So there's different kind of advice programs and some grant funding associated with some of these programs as well. Quite specialist support, again looking at might be marketing, business growth, operations, the specialist advice around export, and also some of those programs look at specialist advice, you know, around sustainability as well. So it's not just wider business growth. So they might work specifically with like aerospace businesses, for example. But yeah, we refer businesses to other support programs in the region. And yeah, that's hopefully an overview of the support available. But if anyone's got any questions now, or feel free to contact me afterwards. And yeah, there's QR codes to register for the different kind of support available in the presentation as well. So yeah, we would encourage you to sign up and yeah, see how we can help you.
Great,
So,
thanks.
has anyone got any questions?
I don't think there's any in the chat. Is there anything, Lindsay?
There's nothing through there at the minute, but you might want to hold just a second in case somebody's frantically typing as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, nothing from anyone. Okay. So, yeah, so I'd just like to thank especially Louisa and Sarah for presenting today, and yeah, thanks everybody for attending today. If you would like further information, we will send the presentations out, and there are links and contacts for the speakers in there if you need to ask anything specific. We've got a next masterclass on the 8th of May, which is around legislation relating to sustainability. And also, if you want to find out more about Clean Futures, there's a link there. We've got, as I say, the next cohort of the accelerator is being launched in the next couple of days. So if you're interested in that, there's more information on there. So yeah, thanks all for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you
Thanks
very
everyone.
much, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Louisa.
everybody.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.